When 20 years ago we had the Good Friday Agreement, which is probably the single best thing that we've done in this country over the last 25 years, and all tribute both to John Major, who started it, and to Tony Blair, who finished it, and to successive Irish Prime Ministers, and to all the political parties. A phenomenal thing. The idea that we should be thinking of turning the clock back to 20 years ago and to a recurrence of the Troubles is absolutely monstrous and unthinkable. But I've spent a lot of time in discussions in Northern Ireland. I did visit the border. I wasn't afraid to meet the people who would tell me what the reality was going to be if we have a hard border. And what they told me was not only was there a real danger of any move towards a harder border precipitating a return to the Troubles, and they told me why, which is because if you have differential customs, tariffs and immigration rules at that border, you will start getting serious smuggling. The smuggling will be run by the paramilitaries, as it was back in the 60s and 70s, which was a large part of the reason why the Troubles started in the first place. And it will be an instrument of control by the paramilitaries, and it will also be a massive instrument of money for the paramilitaries too, which is the reason why you will have to have either fixed border infrastructure, which is a real danger of that being shot down, which is what happened again back in the 60s, or mobile infrastructure, which means soldiers and the police routinely stopping cars, vehicles, trucks, and searching them. And that is an absolute surefire way of getting a return to serious conflict in Northern Ireland. So what is the right thing to do? It's not to do it. But when I was there, they told me about the referendum. Because remember, there was a referendum in Northern Ireland on the Good Friday Agreement. Indeed, there was a referendum in the Republic of Ireland too. It produced an overwhelming majority in the Republic of Ireland, but it produced a three-quarters majority in Northern Ireland. And in that referendum, a copy of the Good Friday Agreement was sent to every voter in Northern Ireland. And I know, because they all regarded it as so serious, they read it. Lots of people told me about it. It said what was going to happen to the decommissioning of weapons, to the organisation of the border, to citizens' rights, all of these issues which were covered in the Good Friday Agreement. And what somebody said to me at one of these meetings, which lodged in my mind, is, Lord Adonis, when we had the referendum on the Good Friday Agreement, a copy was sent to every voter in Northern Ireland. That surely is a reason why we should have a referendum on Theresa May's treaty, because a copy should be sent to every voter in the United Kingdom. So for the first time, people are actually voting on an actual proposition to leave. And I think that's completely right. It completely makes the case for this second referendum. In the first referendum, we couldn't know what the terms of departure were going to be because there were no terms. There couldn't be any terms because there hadn't been any negotiations. Now there are, we should have the referendum. And I pray in aid on this one, my good friend Jacob Rees-Mogg. Because Jacob, remember, back in 2012 when he was trying to persuade David Cameron to do the referendum, which was instrumental in getting Cameron to come out for it in 2013, Jacob said, to meet the point about how would you deal with the fact that people wouldn't know what they're voting on, he said we should have what he called, and it's in Hansard, I like quoting it, he doesn't like it, but it's there, he said we should have a dual referendum. A dual referendum. And the dual referendum would be first a referendum on opening negotiations with the European Union on departure so we could generate terms, and then, having done that, we would then have a second referendum on those terms. Now, do you know what I really like? I love Jacob Rees-Mogg's dual referendum. That is what we want. That is why we should have a people's vote, and it's in aid also of the argument of the people of Northern Ireland, who rightly said that having a referendum on a concrete proposition is what helped produce a stable and shared consensus of view in Northern Ireland, and I think we should do the same here, and it is an overwhelmingly strong argument for a people's vote, and it should happen sometime this year.